actually didn't even
Yeah,
know.
everything sounds good.
Awesome.
Here we go. And we're live here at the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal.
That would make me terrible, Troy.
I'm Treacherous, Trista.
And we're joined by Jack Bennett. It's very cool to have you here.
Well,
It's a very hard one to come up with a cool nickname for.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's my adjective?
Our original co-founder with us, Troy and I, was John, and he was Jittery John, which he's never was really happy with. But
Yeah, no, I'd want it to be more menacing.
Yeah, you're more the victim if you're jittery, I think.
Yeah,
yeah. But we'll work on it.
yeah. No, I'm racking my brain right now. The whole podcast is just gonna be me not saying anything good. Jaws fan.
We can go
Jaws
10.
fan.
Oh, Jaws. There you go. Jaws Jack. I don't know if it really rolls off the tongue, but
It
I
really
like
does
Jack
not.
Attack.
Jack Attack. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Many people have suffered from those throughout the years.
I was thinking maybe Jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Too easy. My God.
All right.
Liesel also says Jack Attack.
All right.
Oh, are there comments in the section that I can't see?
We're voting on it right now.
Yeah,
So.
there's a chat room up on the YouTube page.
She shouldn't be commenting. She's driving right now.
Oh.
I'm sure it's
Liesel.
voice to text. And,
Well-
yeah, Andrew says hello, and Robert McGarth says hello to everyone. Says that he met Trista at Monster Palooza.
I'm so happy that the chat is not who is that? Why are you doing this? Boy, the show is really I saw the montage of former guests, and it's like I can't possibly measure up. My Lord. You all have had some incredible guests on this show.
Yeah, sometimes it even surprises myself when I go through the old shows to take clips out. I was like, wow, it's wild to talk to someone from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh,
And
yeah.
someday I'll be saying the same things like, wow, we talked to Jack Bennett. Very cool.
Mhm.
Oh, horseshit. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I curse?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank Christ. I have a
That's
Julie
the way-
Adams autograph right over here. I have a great one hanging up that I got to meet her within the last sort of year of her life. And I've got this great picture. It's one of the split prints where the top is her doing the backstroke and the bottom is Creature swimming underneath.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
still one of the greatest scenes ever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know,
Oh,
just horror
absolutely.
movies, but any movies, I think.
And Julie wrote on there, I can see it from here, Jack, come on in, the water is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was
Were you at Monster Palooza too?
No, I wasn't in Monster Palooza. I've been Trista shaking her head because I texted her and said I couldn't be there. I've been
Thumbs down.
constant crunch time, but I'll come up for air soon. So you are my study break.
No, well, excellent.
That's a good thing.
It's like hitting a coffee shop in the middle of finals. That's what this feels like right now.
So when going over like stuff you've done, a lot of crossover with horror and music.
A lot of crossover. I gotta say, I didn't realize y'all were gonna post that bio. I looked at that thing and I was just like, oh, that was for internal use only.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
looks
I
like-
did not know this.
Oh no, it's okay. There's nothing on there I'm embarrassed by, but it's literally like, here's what Jack Bennett's done. And if you didn't like that or didn't see that, here's another thing he did. And here's another thing. And oh, did you not hear about that? Here's another. It's the bio equivalent of do you like me yet? Do you like me yet? So that was more to give you all stuff to ask me about, but it's really interesting too, because that music and horror connection, I mean, you see it over and over again. And Greg Nicotero said to us on the show, he said that all makeup effects artists wanted to be metal musicians, and then every metal musician just wants to be in horror movies. So it keeps going and going and going. They're very, the world of fandom and also creators is very circular.
Yeah. Well, actually, along those lines, and since you do a lot of different things, acting, producing, writing, directing, for you, what's like the most rewarding part creatively wise?
It's definitely directing. It's the one job that I know that if I get a phone call at like 7 p.m. saying, can you be here at 6 a.m. tomorrow? The answer is yes. And then the next question is, what is it? Like, that's the job that I will be able to jump into and do and really feel confident and satisfied for. It's that, I'll tell you this, I never sleep better than after days that I am on set directing. But also, everybody needed, when I moved to Hollywood, everybody needed, an editor. Nobody needed another fucking director, but everybody needed an editor. And so I did a lot of editing, and I've done a lot of, that the second part of that phrase is master of none. So I don't know how I feel about constant.
We leave that part out. Usually.
Yeah, we omit that.
But you know what it is that when I started doing this, you had to do every job, and I didn't go to film school. I went to a school that eventually got a film school long after I left, and God bless them. But there's that thing of, I remember making movies where I was holding a camera and a boom, and I was like, action, cut, and I was the entire crew. I maybe had one other person. My friend Christian Miller was there. Sometimes he'd hold the boom. But I was the production designer, I was the cinematographer, I was the costume designer, on and on and on. And sometimes that just meant you choose which corner of the room you're going to shoot into, and you tell the actors which of their own clothes they're going to wear. But it just sort of starts out as making movies was a trial by error, trial by fire and error, flaming errors, I think is what I'm trying to say. And I got to the point where suddenly I had like a crew of 3 or 4 people, and it just felt like, oh my God, you can collaborate with people and make movies. It's the most incredible thing. So I've done everything, and then because of that, I've been able to do everything, but also be able to recognize the things that I'm not as good at. So there are much, much better cinematographers than me, and thank goodness. So
do you think like having like a base knowledge of all those different things helps in the other areas? Like if you know a little bit of cinematography helps you as a director, and vice,
Absolutely, because the process that everyone else is going through, so you know what you can ask for, what is too much to ask. But also, sometimes you can step in and fill in the blanks. And I don't mean in a way that's like, get out of the way, I'm going to do your job for you. But if, for example, you're trying to make an entire production, you only have 6 people on your crew. I remember shooting music video where I needed these flats to be put up. I didn't have a construction crew. And the person who designed the flats was like, I'm scenic. So I had no idea. It's like, well, how do we make these flats turn into a set? And the answer is, well, you drill jacks into the back of them and stand them up. And I just turn around like, and my jib operator and my pyro guy were like, we'll do it. And then it's like, there's no, when you work with people like that who have no ego about it, then it's like, no, we know how to drill screws into the back of a flat. Like it's that kind of thing where everybody becomes more valuable, especially when you're making tiny little productions. Like if that was a union crew, it'd be like, get your ass away from my scenic, get your hands off of my construction. It's definitely helpful, even when you get into a bigger production though, because then you look at these directors who can do everything or have reputations for being able to do everybody's jobs better than anybody on that set. People like David Fincher and James Cameron and people like that. I think it allows them to be innovative in every department because they kind of understand the mechanics of every department.
By the way,
does that answer your question?
It does indeed. And by the way, Liesl said she was at a stop sign at the time.
Well, be safe, Lise.
Yeah. Trista, you have a question?
I do. Jack, you're talking about coming up as a real like DIY guy, which
yes.
Of course, a lot of people in our community come up that way, making their own movies with their own resources. Do you have any advice for people that maybe want to aspire to start to do that?
Absolutely. I think the best advice I could give is to really think about how your shots are going to cut together and then just get the shot. There's a kind of thing a kind of approach to filmmaking that I really only discovered in Hollywood, which is you kind of need the entire world to be created, and then you walk into that world and pick your shots. And there are a lot of people who simply don't have the budget to do that. It becomes like that movie, Synecdoche, New York, where it's like they create the entire city and then he knows what the scene is. And it's like nobody has the time or the budget to do that. Even on big movies, you don't have the time or the budget to do that. So I feel like a really good method is to just think about the shot, just think about how those shots are going to cut together, and just get the shot, and then make sure you have those shots, because that means that instead of renting the Taj Mahal and shooting a scene in there, you just think about, how do I sell to the audience that that's where we are? And then you get those shots, and then they see what's going on. And as long as you can do that in a convincing way, that's where the skill set comes in. But, you know, our friends, you know, do that kind of stuff all the time. Like, I've seen, there's incredible visual effects artists. That's actually another piece of advice I would have, is like, get into visual effects, figure out what you can do. And yeah, I think that's what it is. Focus on what the shot is. Now, that also sounds kind of like just storyboard your scene and shoot your storyboards. And that can be death, because then you're locked into something that doesn't work. So always leave some room in your plan to embellish, you know, have a plan and then cover your ass. Like, I remember because I'm thinking about all the stuff that I cut that I also directed, it's like, you think about, okay, this scene would be great if it all played out in one shot. And then if you only shoot that one shot, sure, that's great. You're being very confident, you know, you're a ballsy director making that choice. Then you get into editing and the movie stops dead for your oneer, you know? So it's like, by all means, shoot for the moon, get the one shot. But before you leave that day, get a shot of the doorknob, get a shot of the light turning on, get something you can cut to break that oneer up, just in case it doesn't work. So
that kind of goes back to what I said earlier, though. The idea that you are an editor, you also know when you're directing, then you know what I might need when this is being edited, if you're editing yourself or someone else is doing it.
Yeah, but also that gives you a little bit of confidence of knowing how things can cut together, because I'll be on set and I'll have a plan that's perfect in my mind, and then get home and be like, it's better like this. And so you definitely start to think of, well, what are some shots we can get, or what's some things that we can get? And if you're thinking about just how this is going to flow and what the point is of the scene, then you can play. I really find that the least helpful thing for a director is to be indecisive. And now sometimes that means there are some very decisive directors who are making arbitrary decisions, you know, and then nothing actually adds up. But if you're the kind of person who's like, okay, we'll get the scene from every angle and then see what works, sort of like, no, have a plan and then add on to that plan. And when you think about the way when I think about the way that I edit and the way that I like things to be cut together, then I can start to think about, even while I'm shooting, well, if I have this in case of that, and they're just connecting the dots and problem solving, you know, at 60 miles an hour all day long. So
I was curious, when you're directing music, like for like a concert movie, what kind of directing do you do for the band? Do you just want to capture them, or do you actually give them like direction?
Well, now here's the fun part, because now this is stopping being a TED Talk, and I can actually talk about people that you all have heard of, because I gotta say that Mr. Bungle thing, that is like one of my proudest moments for sure. And all we got all day long from the record company, from Ipecac, was, can you just stay out of the band's way? And I'm like, yeah, of course we can stay out of the band's way. And then it got to the point where they were saying, can you just shoot it with, like, you can just shoot with iPhones. You don't have to, this thing doesn't have to be like a movie. And it's them preempting a director stepping in and telling the guys from Mr. Bungle, these geniuses, what they need to do or what we need to get the shot. They're trying to make it not be that kind of situation where I'm walking up to, you know, to Trevor or Trey or Mike, and I'm saying like, now I need you to do this, and have them be like, yeah, who are you? So what we did was we surrounded them with cameras, and I got great operators. I got guys who've worked on documentaries for me, guys who have had to go in, you know, these camera operators who have had to go into situations with no prep whatsoever and capture something. And specifically, you know, my friends Justin Cruz and Dan Cavanaugh, who have shot so many things for me, and they are used to me saying, something's happening, get it. and they have to go, okay, and run and get the thing. And then my DP, Mike Mogadam, he said what he really wanted to do was something that wasn't just your standard music video, your standard concert film or anything. And we were talking about it, and he said, I have these great anamorphic lenses, these Atlas anamorphics, that as soon as you shine a light into them, they become those John Carpenter, lens flares, these sort of weird rectangular lens flares and all that stuff. And then he said, and if I put a bunch of lights on a bunch of stands and they're all different colored light rods, as the camera moves, the colors of the lens flares are going to change. Like, we're building all this stuff into our design of the thing. And then I tell the guys at Ipecac that, and they're like, just shoot it with a phone. We don't care. Just stay out of the band's way. Well, what they didn't realize is what we were setting up was all we had to do was point a camera at those guys and it looked like a movie. It just immediately took on a cinematic quality just by virtue of the way we lit it. And so Patton comes up to me and he says, what do you need from me? And I'm like, I just need you to do your thing and I'm going to capture it no matter what you do. And Mike said, I love you. So Mike Patton has told me he loves me as much as my dad ever did. He is a very sweet guy. They definitely preempted, like, they were trying to make sure that there wasn't going to be a difficulty. But then because we did all that work, it was just a dream doing that thing. And I think that's because we figured out a way to just stand back and shoot those guys with every possible camera that we could find. And then I always had something to cut to no matter what they did. Mm-hmm. So
now, did you know the band before? Like, how did you get involved?
How did I get involved with Bungle? Definitely just one person, Mr. Scott Ian. That guy has been single-handedly responsible for my career since I came to California. And Scott played with Bungle for those live dates. Like, it was a big deal that Mr. Bungle is reuniting. Like, I had been a fan of theirs. I was a record store clerk, and if that's sort of synonymous with being a Bungle fan in the 90s. And those guys getting back together, like when that was announced, like Liesl said, Mr. Bungle's reuniting and we have to go. I'm making it my mission in life to go to those shows. So they reunited and started playing dates in February of 2020, which means you know where this is going.
Right, yeah.
So what happened was I think it was Trevor's idea that they really wanted to do their demo again, because in 1986 they did their demo before Faith No More, before anything. And their demo, they were a Bay Area band in 1986 that, they were like 16 years old. So of course they wanted to be a thrash metal band. So their demo is just thrash. It's just wall to wall, all of these thrash licks. So when they said, let's re-record our demo, because you listen to it and it's just, it's just fuzzy garbage, basically, in terms of sound quality. It's great songs recorded in the hardest to hear possible fidelity. And then they said, well, if we're going to come back and we're going to make this album, we're going to make it the best it can possibly be, why don't we get Dave Lombardo play drums and Scott Ian play guitar? So, the guitarist from Anthrax and the drummer from Slayer, let's get those guys. And it becomes like a super group. So Scott and Dave were playing those dates. And then when they got shut down, they're like, what are we going to do? Like I think actually they were just going to do the dates before they thought of the album. I think the album came out of them not being able to keep doing the tour. So it was Scott who said, I got a guy who could shoot this thing. And we did an in-studio concert right in the middle of COVID. Like, it was something else, man. We went over to Stevie Wonder's studio in Burbank and shot that. Oh, I'm sorry. We went to the Eureka Public Library and we shot it.
Well, you said Scott Ian is responsible, for a big part of your career. So how did that come about? How did you meet him and start working with him?
I met Scott on the first day of production of Blood and Guts, which was the show that we did for Nerdist for years. And it was back in the day, Nerdist had partnered with, it was Google was partnering with production companies to make professional TV shows that would be exclusive to YouTube. And Blood and Guts was one of their first shows. And it was It was a meeting in which during the meeting, Chris Hardwick, who was running Nerdist, said, I wonder if my friend Scott Ian would want to host this. And then he called Scott in that meeting. Scott said, yeah. So the show was, we take Scott Ian, this horror fan, to different effect shops and just do horrible things to him and then show how we did the horrible things to him. And it was at a time when the conversation really was that CGI was taking over practical effects. And practical effects were like, those people were wizards at that point. Like their work, there were no seams anymore. So we really wanted to celebrate these guys, and we really wanted to kind of show how incredible practical effects had gotten, because we were just walking in there with DSLR cameras and pointing this camera at something with no lighting, and it looked brilliant. And that was sort of the whole point of the show. So Chris was the one who brought in Scott. I meet Scott on the first day of shooting over at Jerry Constantine's shop. And the first thing we did after we met Scott was pull out his chest hair when we did a live cast. So like one of the first experiences Scott Ian had with me was unimaginable pain at the top of his chest. And he still showed up for the second day of shooting. So I think I knew from then on that that guy was a good collaborator.
Yeah, I'm a very hairy man, so I can understand the pain.
As am I. I understood. He's great for a lot of reasons, but one of the things that I always find really tremendous about Scott is that he's such a no bullshit, straightforward, decent kind of guy. He definitely doesn't suffer fools, and he doesn't ingratiate himself to people, but he is a decent, polite, like he remembers people's names, he introduces himself, he does the whole thing. He was such a lesson in how to be a known person, like from the moment I met him. And then we got to be friends, and he seems to have a lot of confidence in my abilities. But that decency, that sort of like that essential sort of good person thing that Scott is, that extends when he recommends people for things. When he tells somebody this guy's good, then people know, oh, this guy's not an asshole. So I don't know how I convinced him that I'm not an asshole, but it worked. And he puts me up for jobs all the time. I love that guy.
It seems like obvious, but that does come up a lot. The idea of, if you're nice to people when you're making movies or whatever, they're going to put a good word in for you, and people are going to actually want you around, as opposed to like, man, I don't want this guy around.
Well, the more successful people I meet, like very successful people, the more I meet really decent, non-shark-like people. Like you do meet a lot of people on the way who they feel like they have to be cutthroat, and they feel like they really have to claw their way ahead. And that culture is definitely supported around here. Like they definitely do. You'll find a lot of people do respond positively to that and allow that and even respect that. You got to respect a go-getter. I have a text from a friend of mine that said, Scott texted me while we're talking. I don't know if that means he's watching. So I have a friend of mine who texted me and said, you got to respect his hustle, about a person where I'm like, I don't know if hustle is there's a difference between ambitious and having good intentions. And I definitely don't fault ambition. And I definitely don't fault people being serious and trying to get ahead. But don't step on people. Like everyone's gonna be around for a long time. So if you can get through your career without screwing anybody over. Now, the flip side of that is everybody in Hollywood has a story about how they got screwed over. And everybody has somebody who thinks that person screwed them over. Like the nicest person that I've met in the film business, Derek Mears, has somebody out there who thinks that Derek screwed them over. Like, I'm sure. I've never talked to that person, but that exists. So, and if you're out there, Derek, it's not me. There's something to that. There's something to the more, like, what you put out there is what you get back. And I don't even mean that in sort of like a fishes and loaves kind of thing. I mean that like, if you are honest and straightforward, then you'll attract honest and straightforward people. I really do believe that, because people see that in you and they value it and they want to be attracted to that. So can you all tell how many cups of coffee I had before I did this? It might be 6.
I just read today that Stallone drank 25 cups of coffee a day while he was training for Rocky 3. And I was like, man, I'm the modern day Balboa.
That's why that guy is fucking Rocky.
Exactly.
25 cups of coffee. Can you all hear these leaf blowers and stuff? I'm going to close this.
No, I just want to say Derek Mears was in the very first panel I ever ran, and he did not screw me over. Yeah, but someone on that panel did, but it wasn't Derek Mears and it wasn't Brian Steele. They were both very the third person, not so much, but it's also probably why he doesn't do conventions anymore. I moderate a panel, which I think I know who it is. I moderate a panel that was Derek and Kane. So I had those two guys up on, and that was one of the first panels I moderated. And they were both so great and so funny. Like, they're both really funny guys. Kane has that wonderful dry sense of humor. Derek, of course, Derek's a comedy performer too. And that was sort of like getting thrown feet first into how to moderate a panel and stay out of the way of what's happening. And then halfway through it, I checked the time by going like this. I was just holding my phone under the table, and Kane says, "Hey, look, this guy's looking at his phone. He's supposed to be moderating this panel. What the hell's wrong with you?" But then, yeah, that was, I did. Did I ever run into it at? Did you ever go to Rock and Shock? And I've been to Rock and Shock. That's actually the first convention I went to. But I'm, we may have passed each other. I don't,
I did that for many years. I was going to Rock and Shock, and then I would hang out with people in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
That I lived down the street from in LA, and we'd always say the same thing. Why do we only hang out when we're in Worcester? We live next door to each other.
That's the place to hang out.
Because Worcester's all kinds of cool.
Actually it is. Last time I was there, it was a few years ago, but last time I was there, I was like, I think Worcester's on the up. But Derek was one of those friends I made in Massachusetts, and he said, all right, this time when we get back to LA, we're gonna hang out. And we've become good friends.
Yeah. So. Rock and Shock, just a quick little story. One of the first, the first people that helped the show. When we started the show is the same year Rock and Shock started. And that's why we had Sid Haig on the show and Betsy Palmer to promote.
Oh, wow.
Very, very cool people. And unfortunately, the last one was their last show. But.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, Gina, who
Gina's great.
Rock and Shock. Yeah, Gina she's just like with Scott. Gina has connected me to a lot of people and said he's a good guy. And I find that it becomes this sort of ripple of goodwill. It's like you throw a rock in the goodwill pond, and it's really, I mean, I think that's a really important thing. If anybody is listening to this and saying, I want to have a lo-fi career in Hollywood, then listen to me and just be nice to people. So
I think that's good advice for what everyone does. Trista, question or comments?
Yes, you have a new concert movie dropping next month, I think on the 16th, and I am very excited about it. Can you tell people about it?
That is Anthrax XL, and that is the Blu-ray release of the live stream that we did last summer. And it's a little spruced up, it's a little different, but it's still those guys getting together. I think maybe when Scott saw what we did for Bungle, he was like, I want this for Anthrax. So when they were doing the 40th anniversary, when Anthrax became a band in 1982, was it 82? I think it was 81. Yeah, 1981 is when they first formed. And like when they played that first gig with probably a completely different lineup, except for Scott, because I know Charlie wasn't the drummer yet. And so it would have been like Scott and Danny Lilker and people who they were probably just playing in a room somewhere in Queens. And so for the 40th anniversary of that moment, we went to a room in downtown Los Angeles, and those guys played, man. It was Charlie and Frankie and John and Scott and Joey, and they just put on a concert, and we pointed cameras at them. So and then Chuck D showed up and blew the roof off the place. So there you go. I can say I directed Chuck D.
That's pretty awesome. Well, yeah. What kind of specials are on the Blu-ray?
Got a lot of rehearsal footage. some songs that didn't make the cut when they did the live stream. So including one that Scott sings. If you have Attack of the Killer Bees, then you know which one that is. And Scott walk around New York City and pointing stuff out and saying like, here's where we did this, here's where we did that. And yeah, and also incredibly high quality Blu-ray image. Like I watched the test thing the other day and it looks spectacular. We did that for Bungle too. We did a Bungle Blu-ray last year, and there's something about it doesn't feel real until you get that FBI warning. You put something you've directed on, and then when suddenly you realize it's a federal offense to copy something you've done, like, oh wow, I'm a part of this now.
I was going to ask you about Brian Posehn. It's I've always been a huge fan of his since Mr. Show. Troy and both and I are huge fans. So that's what's he like to work with? I assume he's a very fun guy.
Incredibly fun. Another good dude, like just straight up good guy. And but also just a guy who's he's just funny in conversation, and not, he doesn't try. He's not on. He's just, you talk to him. It's just funny. He's just a really smart, funny dude who, and then he gets really serious too. Like he's really serious about the horror movies that he watches, and he's really serious about music, and he really sincerely loves all that stuff. And but here's the other thing too. I think Brian, I don't know where he picked this up, and maybe it was from the Mr. Show guys, but because I remember back in the day, it's funny, my co-producer of that video of New Music Sucks specifically, we lived together in Virginia, and we would watch Mr. Show at 3:00 in the morning or whatever.
Yeah.
And
I made my brother watch it. I was a big fan.
Yeah. And then cut to 15 years later, and we're on set with Brian shooting comedy bits. And that's the thing. That's what I was mentioning before. I don't know where exactly he learned this, but I would pitch things and Brian would laugh and then say, well, I'm laughing, so I think we have to do it. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter where it came from. My co-producer on that was C.K. Kimball, who's a comedy performer and writer and amazing person. And she brought all this energy and all these great comedy people to the set. And then there would be, should we do this? Should we do that? There'd be all these little moments and everything. And Brian would laugh at us pitching the most humiliating thing. He'd be like, no, that sounds funny. So we have to do it. So yeah, he was a blast to work with. And that thing was tough too. Did you see the other one? Did you see Grandpa Meddle? The one we did that?
No, I did not.
It looks like this. So basically, we were in the middle of producing those two music videos, again, March of 2020, and we got shut down thinking, okay, in 2 weeks, we'll pick back up. And then 2 weeks became 2 months, and so Brian had the idea. He's like, can we finish one of them, but do it Zoom style? Hey, kitty cat. And so we did. I was like, if we're going to do that, it just has to be the biggest, craziest. So Grandpa Meddle, the music video, is like, it starts out just looking like a pandemic Zoom, a Zoom music video, because they were doing those where people would just, somebody would be in New York and somebody in London, and they'd all be playing together. So it starts out like that and then goes to crazy heights. And included in those crazy heights are Brendan Small, Joe Troman, and Kim Thale from Soundgarden, who plays the solo. And so we finished that one Zoom style. That was the one we did. And I didn't want to do that for New Music Sucks. I was like, I think we have to finish this one the way we started. So going through the rest of the shutdown and just getting shots where we could, and just really trying to be safe everywhere we could. Like, there was a lot of paranoia. There was a lot of definite, I had one person walk off the set because they were just like, this isn't safe, and I have to go. And I completely support that person's decision too. Like, at that time, all of us were kind of scared. So those are the perfect conditions under which to produce a comedy short. Like, my goodness, everyone was in the mood to laugh. So we shot that thing and nobody got sick, and we took every precaution that we could, and nobody got sick. And we just, piece by piece, put that thing together on a very tight budget too. And if you look at it, the reason why Weird Al is in that video is because we're just doing the UHF video. We're doing the classic Weird Al style video, just a montage of music video parodies. And God, I look back at that, and CK and Mike, who shot my concert videos, like that was everybody really came together and made this epic music video that got released on January 7th of 2021. I don't know why it didn't catch on in the news cycle. Something else must have happened on January, like the day before, that made people not pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. But it was an epic, like that was an epic undertaking for what's essentially a funny 6 minutes. You know, I think that sums up Brian and all of that stuff that we were doing.
You know, there's starting to be more platforms for short films. When you make a video, I guess primarily it's YouTube and Vimeo. Do you think there's like a room for like a platform that would be all streaming music? So I guess MTV of the modern day.
Yeah, I would love it if that happened. I think it really is just that the music industry has changed so much, and we used to be able to get, you know, a $2 million Guns N' Roses video, and there's just not a market for that anymore, unless you're Beyonce. And it's like that market is still really strong, but also, like, I don't know. I think now that we've proven that we can do it, we did the Bloody Wings video for something like $40,000, and that was us trying to make a Game of Thrones episode for $40,000. So, but I would love to see some kind of a music video channel again, but it's going to be online anyway. What I think is really cool is the way in which shorts are starting to show up everywhere. I was just looking at HBO Max, and there's a 14-minute short film on there. And my short, Good Night, is on Prime Video. Like, you can watch it on Prime. And then Fun Size, who made that short, who made Good Night, Fun Size Horror, we put out a show that was taking short films and putting them in a half-hour format, because we were showing the short films. This is Zeke Pinero's his baby. And the idea was, how do we program short films and have them be a part of a show? And we did it by having two stupid horror host puppets introducing them and being the bumpers for these short. So there was a way to do it. We found a format that worked, you know, hey, why don't you see this new short film? And then we roll it. And so that's a half-hour show that could be shown anywhere, but those were all shorts that had already been created for Fun Size Horror that were then put into a body of a TV show. So, by the way, that was my screwball voice. If anybody's seen Shocktail Party, for the 4 people in the audience who were at Alamo Drafthouse when we did Shocktail Party live. So.
But I am glad that there's places for the short films, because I always liked them at festivals, but it used to be like you'd see them and then they'd just kind of vanish, or, you know, they might pop up on YouTube, or sometimes just they'd be nowhere after that.
Well, but that's the thing, is that if something's on YouTube, it'll stay there.
That's true.
I did something called Fangoria Puppets way back in the day that it was on the Fangoria YouTube. It was on their YouTube channel, and then it got taken down when everything changed and ownership changed to Fangoria. And then I just saw it. It's on someone else's YouTube channel. It's still on YouTube. You can still look that one up. And I wasn't making any money off that thing. I don't care that somebody else reposted it, but that's what it feels like. It feels like a YouTube repost. And so that's out there. It's always going to be out there. There's something kind of cool about that.
Mm-hmm. Trista, question?
Yes, Jack. I think it's so cool and interesting that you're a puppeteer. So can you talk about how you learned to do that?
By watching The Muppet Show a lot. By watching Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and The Muppet Show and Little Shop of Horrors and the making of The Return of the Jedi when I was a kid. You know, like, I don't know. It's a, you know what? I remember when we first started doing that, the first day, I had been doing stuff like that just because I loved Henson so much. And Jim Henson is basically my personal hero, which seems weird that I'm a huge horror fan until you realize, you go back and watch The Muppet Show and they have episodes with, there's monsters and they eat each other, puppets eating each other constantly. You know, that one where the little guy's sitting on the fence and he eats the worm and then he pulls up. part of the nose of the, yeah, that scared
They're
the
always
shit.
doing that.
Exactly.
Then
When I
you
was a
think about
kid,
the Muppet shows with like Vincent Price and Alice
Ah.
Cooper and all those, those
Oh,
great
yeah.
ones.
that one with Zero Mostel where he does an Edgar Allan Poe poem.
That one's the best. Yeah, when his
Isn't that great?
toupee's all flipping around.
Yeah,
and
his
stuff. Yeah.
takes his toupee off. He does this weird little thing with his finger that I haven't still been quite figured out.
Oh yeah, yep. That bothered me when I was a kid.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, Trista, I did it by putting a Muppet on my hand and trying until I could actually do it. Now, the crazy thing is that when the Muppet guys, when they're actually doing it, they've got one hand with the little marionette, it's like a pole almost, and then someone else is doing the other hand. Or sometimes it's two people doing this and then a third person, or a second person doing the trigger mouth and stuff like that. And we were doing a Shocktail party, and Talene Wera, who's the other puppet, it's just the two of us. So at one point, I've got the trigger mouth and I'm holding the arm of the other puppet, but then I've got a second puppet that I'm operating with this hand. So I'm kind of going back and forth and doing this, and then she's doing two characters, and we're just all lined up like that. And we're just sitting there going like, this was the worst idea ever. Why did I want to be a puppeteer? But it is one of those things where now that's a skill that I have. We went from the first episode we shot 2 pages in 6 hours, and then the last show that we did, we shot the whole thing in 2 hours. So it's kind of, trial. That's how I've learned how to do everything. It's by doing it and then figuring out what the mistakes were and trying to do it again.
So what made you a horror fan?
A horrible childhood trauma? No, I know what.
Laugh at that.
Yeah. Well, but I was talking about this the other day with Joe Netter. Like, he and I were kind of talking about how he grew up in a small town in the Midwest, and he knew who his friends were because they were the horror people. You see somebody wearing a Texas Chainsaw t-shirt and you're just like, oh, found my people. And it wasn't exactly like that for me, because I grew up for the most part outside Washington, D.C. Jersey can claim me because I was born in Jersey, but I grew up for the most part in Northern Virginia. And I discovered horror probably just from peeking around the side of the couch, like I was scared of horror movies when I was a kid. And then I remember one day, I've told this story before, so I'll truncate it, but I got up before the rest of my family and turned on my TV, and there was the last 20 minutes of Return of the Living Dead. And I was 8, 7. And when it hasn't even occurred to you that like the good guy can die in a movie, the ending of that movie is like, we have reprogrammed the synapses are firing differently. So my parents come downstairs after that and they're like, what is he watching? Oh, Fraggle Rock. Good. I'm just like sitting there, like the neutron bomb at the end of that movie is still in my brain. And that feeling was almost like a drug. It's like I was addicted to it immediately. I just wanted that feeling. So I would get up before the rest of my family on Saturday mornings at like 5:30 in the morning, go downstairs and watch whatever I could of the last R-rated movie that they were showing on HBO before the programming switched to Brain Games and Fraggle Rock. So I saw the end of Evil Dead 2. I saw the end of Fright Night. I saw the end of Reanimator. I saw movie after movie after movie. And these are not soft movies. The ending of all these movies are quite crazy. But it's one of those genres where I think it's the only genre, maybe besides comedy, that what it really elicits is like a release. Every good movie that we watch in any genre is going to give you kind of like a physical, emotional reaction if it's really good, if it's really powerful. But there's something about horror that almost feels cleansing afterwards, and it feels like when you're a horror fan, also you're a part of a club of a bunch of people who are like, oh yeah, no, life is terrifying. The world is horrifying. The possibilities of the world are horrifying. And we know that, so we get to celebrate it together. It's these idiots who don't understand that life is horror, but we get that. And I think there's a bit of a punk mentality to it too. It's like I grew up with a lot of DC punk rockers, and punk, it's sort of like a part of your identity forever, whether you're still playing punk music, in your 40s. It's like, John Doe and Henry Rollins aren't in punk bands anymore, but they are always going to be punk, right? So horror is kind of it's the movie equivalent of punk for me. And you can have very glossy, polished, you can have, the London Calling equivalent of horror, and then you can also have the 7-inch equivalent of horror, people who just record the thing with whatever they had available. So
that's actually a good analogy, I think. Let's see.
Just
And I like both sides too. I can like a really like a Jordan Peele movie or Basket Case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Basket Case, my God. I love Brain Damage. That's my favorite Hen and Lauder. Although Lise and I watched Frankenhooker kind of recently, and I found a new appreciation for that watching it through. I think I always, since it was a little campier than Brain Damage, I wasn't as much a fan. And then it was last Valentine's Day, Liesl and I ended up watching a double feature. I think she talked about this on your show. We do highbrow, lowbrow. So one of us picks one and one picks the other. So I picked Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast, which she had never seen. And that was the highbrow. And then after it was over, it was like, she loved it. And I was like, what do you want to watch next? And she goes, Frankenhooker. We did a double feature of Beauty and the Beast and Frankenhooker. And my God,
yeah.
I'm going to program that someday. You all need to experience those two movies back to back. When all those bells ring out, and then she says, "Want a date? Got any money?"
Yeah,
no, I don't have any money.
Hen and Lauder started the shared universe because you have
Right.
Kevin makes a cameo. Yeah,
That's right. She's on the TV, and I think some of the Basket Case stuff is like on the TV, and yeah, that's great. Hen and Lauder, the original, the HCU.
exactly. Liesl wants to know. I want to know what Jack's dream role as an actor is.
Oh, she knows the answer to this. It's really funny because the reason why Trista, you and Liesl are just superheroes, and everybody who tries to have an acting career is just like a superhero even before you get the job playing one, is because you all have to wake up and you have to all day long, you're auditioning, you're working out, you're networking, you're podcasting, you're getting yourself out there. And from the beginning to the end of your day, it's just about that. It's just about your acting career. And I love acting and I take it very seriously, but I do not have the fortitude for that career. I could not possibly make it all about acting. It's like you have to love acting to want to do it as a job. And I like doing it when, friends of mine like Frank Woodward say, I wrote this part for you. And I go, great. I played sort of a Renfield type character in one of Stephanie Paris's movies. And it's like, oh, you want me to play some pervert? Awesome. And I like
I had you in mind for this. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But all that being said, it's like, if, I look at the careers of some people, the only reason why I'm not committing to an acting career really is, I wouldn't get anywhere because I can't commit all my time to it. But also like the behind the camera stuff is so much more like I could live my entire life doing that kind of work. Being in front of the camera, I could maybe live half my life doing that without getting bored. So with all that being said, Miss Hanson, to answer your question, if somebody wanted to cast me in a part like Boddicker and RoboCop, like Kurtwood Smith and RoboCop, or like if it was something where that ability that he had to play a character who was an absolute villain and then was clearly having fun with it. Like I wouldn't say Alan Rickman in Die Hard because that's the same thing, but that's Alan Rickman. That's a height that I don't think I could ever reach. And even though Kurtwood Smith is one of my favorite actors, I look at him and I'm sort of like, I see more of a resemblance there. But also it's that kind of that kind of ability to walk into a role that's not the lead, that's not even the main bad guy when you get right down to it, but to be able to bring up a character like that, and he's in real life such a nice man and such a decent guy that you can kind of feel the whole like, all right, I'm really committing to this, and he's being imaginative about it, and he's doing stuff like spitting the blood on the form, and it's not just the choices he makes, it's having the room to be able to make those choices, and having a director like Verhoeven look at a performance like that and know how to capture it and know what takes to print, and all that kind of stuff. So if I found somebody who was like, okay, you're going to play this real complete piece of shit, monstrous bad guy, but we're going to have fun with it, I'd be like, I'm absolutely there.
Dave Bailey says he literally just watched Frankenhooker for the first time last Thursday.
It's great. Yeah, I think just because I love Brain Damage so much, and I love those like street level, grungy, grimy.
There's something about the New York movies of that era, big and small, like Taxi Driver and Best Case, all those kind of movies. Chud.
Well, of course, Chud. Yeah, and if you look at Taxi Driver, there are shots in there that they must have just been rolling down the street, grabbing shots of the craziness. Like I got to talk to a few people who lived in New York in the 70s, and it was an amazing time to live there and be an artist, and a terrifying time to live there and be a person.
Right.
I'm really enjoying talking to you all. This is
very good. We enjoyed it. Well, I enjoy talking. I'm sure all of us enjoy it.
Trista and I met we all went to Mad Monster Party. Was that in Arizona? And we were with a group that were really putting the Mad and Party into Mad Monster Party. So Trista and I would just sneak away, just sort of like, hey, you want to? We found a little. It's like in the back of the hotel we were at. There's like a casino in the back, and we would slip away, and we found a complimentary soda fountain. It's like, oh, good, we don't have to buy $8 Cokes. And we just sort of would sit there and be like, this is crazy, right? Yeah.
A shout out to my friend Eben, who runs Mad Monster, and congratulations. He's bringing back famous monsters of Filmlands. Right?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
October 13th. Yes. Liesel also wants to know what is the number one thing a director can do to make you feel good on set?
To bring Liesel Hansen with him. That. I love that all these questions are coming from the person who knows the answer. Let me think. What was the question again? I'm so sorry.
What's the best
thing again?
What's the best thing a director can do to make you feel good on set?
The best thing a director can do to make you feel good. I assume she means what can a director do to make an actor feel good?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's funny what you were talking about before about doing everything. It's like, because I've done some acting, it gives me, I'm not saying it gives me insight because every actor is different, but it gives me more of an idea of what an actor is going through and what they're feeling when they're doing something. And I think that every director should take an acting class, and certainly every director should take a writing class and have their screenplay scrutinized. Like, I think having those skills, because specifically writing and acting, because a lot of the other skills are very technical and there's something about them that can't be argued. But if you're an actor, if you're a writer, you're just every day just reaching in, molaram, sugaram, here's my heart. And every time you do that, it's like there's a vulnerability to that. And so I kind of feel like the way that a director can make an actor feel good on set is just to let them know that, hey, this is fun. There's a reason why we're not in an office. We're doing this. It might be a high pressure day. Filmmaking is always high pressure. Every minute that you're on set, you're burning money, all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean we have to act like this is a high pressure situation and panic. Like, first off, we're not on the front lines getting shot at. There's nobody's on the table. And of course, I don't want to bring up horrible things that have happened on film sets recently, So I'm not going to say nobody's going to die, because obviously, you got to be safe, and you got to take care of everything. You got to be real serious about that. But that's the point of having people that really know what they're doing and are really serious about what they do, because then you have people know what they're doing, and you can relax and you can have fun. And then when you're losing your light, you can say, okay, everybody panic, So I think there's something to that. I think there's something to not relax what you're doing, because you got to be serious and you got to be on top of it, but you can relax outside of that. As long as everything's running and everybody's safe, everybody can remember that the reason we're doing this is because, hey gang, we want to put on a show, and hopefully we're making a few bucks in the process. So
Trista, another question.
What are the best and worst parts of filmmaking for you?
Well, the best part is having an idea and then seeing it happen in front of you. And it's like something started as a thought and now there it is. I was talking to somebody recently about how I feel like making a movie is the closest you get to actually having somebody have a dream you had. Because, like, have you ever been in a situation where someone's just telling you a dream they had, and you're like, shut up. Everything you're saying didn't happen. I know it happened to you, but it didn't actually happen, so I don't care. There are no stakes in this story. But if they could show me on a movie screen their dream, I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. So there's something about that. There's something about it. It starts as imagination, and then it becomes a real physical thing. Like there's nothing that you can compare that to, I feel like. And then, obviously, like, theater is something, but I love the theater, but I also, the ephemeral aspect of theater is kind of hard for me to deal with, because I saw this amazing play. Trista, I saw this amazing play 20 years ago. I wish you could see it. If it was a movie, then I'd be like, I saw this amazing movie. Here it is, give it a watch. And, and that's what's wonderful about theater. That's why if you go to a good show that's live, if you go to a concert or something and those guys play and it's like you're watching this show, that's the only time that's ever going to happen. And you were there for it. And that's an amazing thing. And that's something you hold in your heart forever. But if you watched an amazing movie, then you can say next week, let's all go, that kind of thing. The worst part of filmmaking is just dealing with the film industry. It's not even that this business is so bad. It's that that's the sirens they're coming for me. I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry, filmmaking. I'm sorry, film industry. So it's not even that it's a bad business, because it's an amazing business, and it's the only business like it. But there's a lot of fear-based decisions. There's a lot of people who have constant imposter syndrome. There's a lot of people who get into this thing so they won't be told no anymore. And so if you say no, then they're just like, and then they literally attack you with a pitchfork. It's a really hard business to just traverse as a person, because it doesn't make any sense. It goes by whims that are beyond any of us. And a lot of people, it just comes down to their taste. So if anybody says that's not the way the business is, what they're saying is that's not the way my experience of the business is, or that's not the way I think the business is. If everybody had just stopped and said, hey, I got an idea, and then they did everything differently, it would change in an instant. So yeah, I think that's what it is. Because frankly, Trista, when I'm on set, I'm the happiest ever. I don't even have to be on my own set. When I'm on someone else's set, I get a little juiced, and that's the happiest part of my life, is especially getting to direct something. And then the most satisfying part of my life is editing something and seeing it come together. And the hardest part is writing. My God, every time I try to write a script and I'm not under a deadline, it's almost like a traumatic experience of trying to get the thing on paper. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Definitely. So Anthrax XL is
all the comments from Liesel.
No, there's a lot of Dave Bailey's.
Hey.
There weren't questions, but there's a lot of people. Real Badger here with a big smiley face. Andrew Horseshow saying he's hoping to do a Monster Palooza next year.
Fantastic.
Which is very cool. I recommend going to any conventions in your area. They're always a good time.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that group thing, that we found our community, we found our people, you know, having people with like-minded people around, like that's a powerful thing. When you look at that convention and then just say, oh, you look at all those black t-shirts and say, it's me over and over again. So
I used to be my go-to joke when I did the panels. When asked for questions, I'd say you in the black t-shirt.
And everybody would look around. It was great.
That was a timeless joke.
Yes, it's my hacky joke. So Anthrax XL you have coming out. That's very exciting.
Right, in July.
And are you working on anything currently?
Yes.
Well, very good. End of interview.
You know, it's funny when people say I can't talk about it, they mean one of two things. They either mean it's not real yet.
Oh.
So I can't talk about it because I'll jinx it. It's like when people post and they're like, I'm working on this thing that I can't tell you all about. What they're saying is, and I really hope it happens. But then there's the other side of that, which is when you've signed NDAs that are so complicated, your lawyer is asking you what they mean. I'm working on some very cool stuff that I'm not going to tell you all about. And then I'm also going to shoot a short in my apartment tomorrow.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. And I'm doing the good old, I came out here to LA and I stopped doing things so DIY, but every so often you get to the point where you're making a monster with spray paint and pool noodles. And that is what is happening right now. And I'm just having a blast.
I think that's a good name for like a biography. Spray
that
paint.
That's perfect.
And pool noodles.
Yeah. And that's, you know, I'm glad
we're Jack Bennett story.
That's better than I was a failed independent filmmaker. But I'm glad we're having this interview while I'm full of spray paint fumes, because that's really there's some
it's always been my motto.
Some extra sauce on this interview. No, I'm doing this thing for Just Scare Me. If anybody knows about a Buzz Wallach's thing that he started, Just Scare Me. And after years and years, I don't even know if it's been a year. After all this time of not doing it, I finally I got an email for the sign up, and I was just like, oh, I can't do that. I don't have time. I totally have time. And I said yes. And so I'm going to do a short for that thing. So if you're in Just Scare Me on this round, you'll see me there.
very exciting. And where can people follow you to see what you're up to?
Oh, I have no
I
have no social media presence. Just come to my house.
No,
I'm on Twitter, that Jack Bennett. I'm on Instagram, Know the Real Guy, N-O the Real Guy. And any day now, I'm gonna do my first post on Instagram. I promise. I know I've been saying that for 7 years, but it's the whole thing. I've just been busy. I'm old. I look at social media and I'm confounded by it. So I was gonna do something I was gonna post something on my birthday. I was gonna do it's my first Instagram post. And then my birthday came and went, and I was like, I'll do it in a few months.
Yeah, so. We have another one coming up next year.
Oh yeah, what the hell? So that Jack Bennett, Know the Real Guy, find me on Facebook, send me a message, cast me as Clarence Boddicker, just your version of it.
Very exciting.
I haven't thought of a J yet. I haven't thought of a J adjective.
But I'm glad that you've been thinking about the whole show, though. Well, we'll save it for next time.
We barely. Hey, Jackal Bennett. Yeah, Jackal Demon Spirit. We barely scratched the surface of everything of that 8-page bio that I sent you all. We could do this again.
Yeah, let's do. Well, that's worth saving. For
always good.
Part 2 is good. Yeah. Or the J could be your first Instagram post.
Now I gotta think of one. My God.
Mhm.
Just me reading. The next time we do this, it'll just be me reading the dictionary.
He's got
John-
the thesaurus in hand. Just
Yeah.
Well, Liesel suggests jaundiced. Jaundiced Jack
Whoa.
Bennett.
Oh,
I've been
That's
using the
dark. That's too dark.
please. I've been using the toner. Damn it!
Well, very
It's
good. I think
so-
that's a fitting ending.
It's so it's so amazing to have. This is great though. The fact that she keeps commenting. I'm such a fan of hers. It's amazing to have
We're
mutually
all
fans.
fans of hers.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Take
true.
my best relationship advice is find someone much better than you, and then
I that's the first time I heard about you is when I met Liesel a couple of years ago on a movie.
you know why? We're both way too modest. We haven't learned how to brag about ourselves, so we just brag about each other.
Well, that's very nice.
So
Yeah,
she's
that's
a
a
very
good
impressive person. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great. And thanks, Trista, for setting this up.
Yeah, thank you both.
And thanks, Jack, for coming on.
Thank you, Trista. Thank you. It was such a pleasure to finally be in this frame instead of just watching it. You guys are great.
No, it's been great. Yeah,
Yeah,
we will
come back
definitely do part
anytime.
2. Yeah. We're not
Appreciate
just saying that to be nice either.
Clearly, I won't run out of things to say.
No.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But thanks everyone for watching. It's been a very good time.
All right, good night, everybody.
Bye. I'll wave awkwardly while I hit end.
Excellent.
Release the director's cuts.